Hey everyone, this is Phil Terrill, author of Collision Course, 4 F's to Transform Life's Challenges into Powerful Breakthroughs, and you're listening to Annie Talks.
Annie Talks, Annie Talks. Welcome to the show, here we go with Annie Talks. Annie Talks, Annie Talks. Welcome to the show, here's the host, it's Annie Talks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Annie Talks, where we bring to you interesting stories about interesting people that you want to know about. I'm your host, Annie Rivera. Thank you for tuning in, and to those who have already subscribed. If you're new to the podcast, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what you hear, and if so, I personally invite you to subscribe. Annie Talks is brought to you by Daily Gadgets and More. Daily Gadgets and More is proud and committed to offering the largest variety of high-quality products at the lowest prices and the best customer service. Find us on Instagram or visit dailygadgetsandmore.com. That's dailygadgetsandmore.com. My guest on this episode is business professional and author Phil Terrill. Phil is a builder. From building consumer brands to world-class sales organizations, he is right at the heart of sharing experiences that are worth their weight. With his passion for empowering people, it is no surprise that his new book, Collision Course, would be the platform to convey those stories. As an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and global leader, Phil is constantly striving to encourage his community to pour into their purpose. He is committed to building the lives of others by sharing his testimony about an experience that truly changed the trajectory of his life. The transparency and truth in his writing will be the foundation of success for anyone. Today, Phil is a global program manager at Microsoft. Prior to Microsoft, Phil worked with the Burks companies in Atlanta, Georgia, helping a family enterprise deliver facility management solutions across the Southeast. He has also spent time working with Miller Coors, or formerly Miller Brewing Company, in downtown Chicago. Phil received his Bachelor of Science in Marketing from Tuskegee University. Phil resides in St. Paul, Minnesota, and enjoys traveling the world, learning about new cultures, spending time with family, and living life to the fullest. You can learn more about Phil's journey at readcollisioncourse.com. So, without further delay, here now is my conversation with Phil Terrill. Hey, Phil, thank you so much for being on the show. I really, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Annie.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure all the way. So, Phil, let's get started. Why don't you tell our listeners who Phil Terrill is? Give a sense of maybe your hometown, your background, your education, and so on and so forth, and all that leading up to who Phil Terrill is today.
Yeah, for sure. So, again, thank you for having me. And, I always like to say, I'm a Midwest guy with Southern influence. And so I'll kind of tell you what that means. So I grew up, born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, near the 35W bridge that collapsed. I'm sure some people may remember that. And grew up here in the Twin Cities and all the way until I was about in middle school. I moved to the East Coast for about 3 years and finished sort of my upbringing back in St. Paul with high school. And then education-wise, I actually ended up going to a historically black college in Tuskegee, Alabama, which was going from the big city to the middle of the country, which was crazy. Which was crazy for me. It was also a great opportunity I had, which was with the LAGRANT Foundation when I was an undergrad, and we share that experience, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. And then from there, I left undergrad and went on to work in Chicago for Miller Brewing Company, which is now Miller Coors. Then went to work for a family business in Atlanta for about a couple of years. And then the accident happened, which is around the book Collision Course, which is, core of part of what we're going to talk about today. And I actually moved to Fargo, North Dakota for 2 years. And that started my journey at Microsoft and where I'm at today. So A lot has gone into the journey, but definitely blessed to be, here, and then really excited to talk with you.
Awesome. So what I really love about hearing about the journey that people talk about is really how it's kind of shaped them and molded them into who they are today, how it made them better, how it made them stronger. Like Kelly Clarkson, like the song, "What doesn't break you makes you stronger."
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the LAGRANT Foundation Scholarship. We met back in 2011 in New York City when we were all of us, there was like how many of us, 20 something?
Yeah, 20 or so. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all flown to New York. And thank you so much, LAGRANT Communication, or
thank you.
LAGRANT Foundation, for just a wonderful opportunity. So like I said, we met there. We received the news that we were recipients of this prestigious scholarship. Now, what was your initial reaction, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, I remember I think I was at like my apartment or something in Tuskegee, and I was just like, I applied to the LAGRANT Foundation kind of like on a whim, to be honest, because I was like, I'm not, like I was still like a general business major, like tilting towards majoring or like, doing a specification or specialization in marketing. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to apply just like for the hell of it. And I ended up applying, and like, I remember when I got the response, I was sitting like at my computer and I was like, oh shoot. I was like, totally got that scholarship. I was like, this is crazy. I told my mom, I was like, hey, I have to go to New York. She was like, for what? I was like, I definitely got this scholarship that I didn't really, really like and think I was going to get, because it's like, it is a prestigious scholarship. And like what the LAGRANT Foundation does for, like people of color going into like communications or any field like that.
Right.
Like I was super pumped. And then like when I saw who was going to be there, I was like, oh my God, this is serious. Like you need to get your mind together here.
Seriously.
So I was super excited. And then of course it was in New York. So it was just like, that was even better.
That was so much fun. I mean, it was a whirlwind, couple days?
Couple days, yeah.
It was like 2 or 3 days at best, or maybe 3 days, 2 nights kind of thing. And yeah, what a whirlwind experience. First of all, we met all these wonderful,
amazing people.
Amazing. We had just the workshop alone was amazing. The dinner, everything, and then the gala and the reception.
Yeah,
fantastic. And I'm gonna dig up the old video. I think I posted way back when on my Facebook. So I'm gonna dig that up, and I'm gonna link it down below in the show notes, so everybody that wants to see it and wants to see what the experience was like for us as recipients, and then just just the fun that we had in that short little time was so much fun. Yeah, and it was like a brotherhood, a sisterhood. We've all remained virtual friends, throughout Facebook and social media and whatnot. And then we kind of like cheer each other on when things happen. So, and this is how we stay connected, you and I, Phil. And I'm so thankful for that wonderful experience that we both shared.
Absolutely. And it's crazy, like on that, just a little bit. I don't want to like say it too far away, but even at Microsoft, I ended up doing a demo for like 2 years ago, and this is something we can talk about later, but the lady that actually helped put together the communications for the executive that I did the demo with, she actually knew Pam Edstrom and used to be a VP over at like Wagner Edstrom. And so it was just like a small world thing, even though like I almost actually went to go work for Pam. Like
accidentally.
Accidentally. I was like, oh, like I really love, like when I met her in New York, I was like, I love you. Like you're amazing. Like you're this small, powerful lady, and I think you're great. And then I met this other lady at Microsoft, and she knew Pam. I was like, small world. You just never know who you're gonna meet.
Right.
And how the connections sort of start to fall into place, like even years later. So it's just LAGRANT Foundation was the core of that. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it was like a stepping stone or that kind of helped all of us catapult us all into the careers that we have today. I mean, I've followed so many of our classmates of 2011 that year, and I see so many people in that that class that are, accelerated into their careers, yourself including. And I love it. I think it's just a fabulous, it's just a testament to the scholarship program and the experience and, all the industry folks that kind of helped us, get, push us along our career path. So, I say kudos to the LAGRANT Foundation and all the donors for, having our back basically and just giving us that opportunity, right? Where we otherwise probably would not have one.
Totally.
So for sure. Okay. So, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and dig those up and hopefully I can find them and I'll make them available for everybody so they can see it and see just how much fun that was for all of us. And for those, here's a small plug for LAGRANT Communications or LAGRANT Foundation Scholarship. There is a scholarship. I think they've already kind of met their quota for this year, but, you definitely want to go look them up, LAGRANT Foundation, and, check the criteria. If you meet the criteria and you're in the communications, advertising profession or in school for those majors, definitely something that you want to go look up because, it helped Phil and I, accelerate in our career. So it's something we definitely want to kind of pay forward. So just make sure you guys take a look at that. So hello, Kim and everybody at LAGRANT. Okay, so now let's talk about your professional journey. Now you talked a little bit about Microsoft Corporation and you're a business program manager. Is that correct?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that journey and how did you get this? It sounds so wonderful. And it sounds like, Fort Knox, it's hard to get into Microsoft. It's hard to get into, some of these really big, mogul industries. So, or corporations. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I was actually, super blessed and fortunate to, have a mother who spent 20 or so years at General Mills here in the Twin Cities before retiring. And so part of that, she met a ton of people right along that journey. And within that community, she actually knew an executive, and he was one of the very few Black executives at Microsoft at the time. He was on the public health side of the Microsoft business at the time. And he became a mentor prior to me going into Microsoft and actually let me know about a startup. Funny enough, right? A startup organization, not a company, but like an actual org within Microsoft that was looking to focus on sort of a rebirth of our inside sales discipline. And that sort of became the entry point into Microsoft. And that team was located in Fargo. And so, we were going back and forth. I was like, look, I'm not going to Fargo. You have to think, like, I was like, for context, like I was in Atlanta. So I was like, I'm definitely not moving to Fargo. But, I say that and I always laugh and tell people that part of the story because it's one of those situations where you have to take the location out of the equation to an extent and think about, the bet that you're placing on yourself to get to, maybe where you want to go. And so that to me, like location wise, maybe been a few steps backwards, but professionally, it actually became the launching pad of my, sort of career at Microsoft so far over the last 4 years. So that's what started the journey, at least from a Microsoft perspective. And then, things have been rocking and rolling since then. And I didn't start off as a program manager.
Okay.
So the journey has been a lot of hard work, and, navigating and networking and doing a lot of the softer things that people tell you about when you're in school, but it's hard to really put it into context until you
until you're in it.
Yeah,
right.
Until you have to do it real time. So.
Right. Until you're really immersed in it. So now for young people, for young business professionals who are struggling to find that, that path or even an ideal job or any dream job, what would you say to them right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I would say a couple of things. The first one is sometimes you do have to take a step back out of your current situation and look at the bigger picture of what you really want to get to. Like for me, I wanted to be in a global role like I am today. And when I first took a role at Microsoft, like I wasn't in that. I was in an entry level role. Part of it, I requested that so I could learn, the technology part of Microsoft, because I didn't come from that. And so like sometimes you have to put yourself in very, very like uncomfortable situations, which people hear often, but to get to that like dream job or that job where you feel like you're, being able to infuse your purpose with your passions, like that type of a role, or experience, I kind of stopped using the word role. I try to say career experience, but, but that type of experience comes from, really taking a risk on yourself and stepping out of the small scenario and getting into looking at the bigger picture. Because you might have to take a risk or a lateral move, to sort of elevate into a role that gives you that level of fulfillment across, all aspects of life, which is what, most people see in dream jobs.
So I took 2 takeaways from this conversation so far. First of all, you had to kind of take the location out of the equation, which I really, hadn't thought about. You kind of have to step out of your comfort zone and kind of see the meat and potatoes of everything and see, how that stepping stone or that career or that job can, help you to move you forward and make you better and then toward the career that you want, it sounds like. I really love that. 2, the other takeaway I took from it was when you said that you kind of had a request to say that part again. You said something about you just had a request to be in a position or to do something.
Yeah. Is that around the entry level piece?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, so when I was interviewing for Microsoft, like, I think I had, based on my experience at the time, like I was, I already had about 3.5 years or so, 4 years of work experience. And so I think because of the previous experience, I was able to say like qualify for a certain level of a role, right? Which was not necessarily entry level or the lowest role in this new org. It was the role above that role. But I, in the interviewing process, was really adamant about not skipping a role, because I didn't know Microsoft. I didn't know the industry, like technology, at the time. And that was 4 years ago. Things have changed even since then. And I didn't know. And so I knew that I knew sales stuff. I knew the business angles. I could have conversations with executives, et cetera, but there's still that component of the technology, that if you don't understand that and don't, have a strong grasp around how to humanize, and I said this on another conversation, but like if you don't know how to humanize the technology conversation in this particular space, it's going to be really hard for you to be successful. And especially when you're in a customer facing role, because these folks are either really deep technical folks, or they're just really experienced, C-level or, senior business folks. So they're the balance of the kind of people you're talking to. You need to be ready. And so I knew I wasn't ready, and a place that could get me ready would be to take the most entry level role, and start from the bottom and, work my way up into the roles that I wanted to get into. And that was like the journey. Is when I was in Fargo, it was like, one, I'm trying to go through a self-discovery period, because it was, a follow-up opportunity from the car accident, right, to go do that. And then I was also saying to myself, like, Phil, you have to get together on your career path and put in some work. And so I started in the entry level role, and then 6 months later, I actually got back into the role I initially was going to get. And then, I was crushing that role supposedly. And then I moved into another role, more corporate account manager type role. And when I was in that role, like I finished number 1 for our, for the US for the inside account managers. And then that allowed me to have a lot of opportunities open up. Wow. Whether it's like a demo with, an executive, or, just some of the opportunities and conversations that, your leadership wants to have with you, and you are performing at a high level for a continued period of time. So that's been the journey, and kind of what I meant by taking an entry level role sometimes is a good thing. People look at it as, oh, I'm in the lowest role. Well, maybe if you have that perspective, right? Mindset is a huge factor in being successful. So that's where I was at.
Wow. So you took a risk, to going to Fargo, and then,
Yeah.
and you took the location out of the equation. I love that. I've never heard that, but I kind of love that. I'm dealing with something right now about that, about taking location out of the equation. And then secondly, you weren't afraid to start at the quote unquote entry level, or at least, get yourself 100%, knowledgeable and immersed into the program, into the system, into the company and the products and all that. So, I mean, I think that's huge. I mean, many people, like you said, will probably skip, one or two levels to get to the next level, for the prestige or for the role or whatever it may be. But I love your mindset, your perspective by starting, again, at the entry level. And I don't want to keep beating that dead horse there, but just you started at the entry level, but you also wanted to learn and make those necessary moves that you knew were going to help you, and then to return back to the role that you wanted to, or that you were initially going for. So that to me is, it shows your tenacity, shows your character, shows your determination and your professionalism. So I think all those. And we should all strive to be just like that. True. It's very true. I think, even for business professionals or entrepreneurs have to do the same. We kind of have to step back and, we may always want that high contract or whatever it may be, but sometimes it's just, you have to understand, you kind of have to understand, where your role fits and where you fit in the equation. And if it means to learn from the ground up, then that's what you have to do. And that's kind of what I ended up having to do for all of last year. Being laid off at a job where I thought was sort of going to take me someplace, and then, deciding, okay, that's it. I can't, keep going in these directions of, jobs where it's not, fulfilling me. I need to understand where I am today and use my skill. And then what is it that I'm not doing maybe correctly, and then relearn those skills, or learn something new, or learn something that'll help me get me to the next level. So I love what you did. It just mirrors exactly, what I did and what other people should be doing as well.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I hope you're enjoying this podcast episode. We'll be right back after this short message from one of our sponsors. ComfaTherm thermal wraps are designed to help relieve the pain and swelling in and around the jaw, especially after wisdom teeth extractions. For more information, visit comfatherm.com. That's comfatherm.com. Hey there, Annie Rivera here. Thanks for tuning in to Annie Talks. Be sure to tell your friends about subscribing to the podcast, and don't forget to rate and review the podcast. Doing so helps out with the algorithm and helps others to find this podcast too. I also invite you to like my Annie Talks Facebook page. There you'll find other news, information, upcoming events, and all sorts of things. Stay in the know with Annie Talks. I also invite you to join the Annie Talks Community Facebook group, where we carry the conversation from the podcast episode to the Facebook group. Ask questions about the episode, about a guest, about the locations, you name it. Ask away. This forum is for you. See you on the Annie Talks Community Facebook group.
So, let's now talk about this collision course. I keep hearing about the accident, and I want to hear about it, and I don't want you to relive it, but I know that it has an important message. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about your book. It's Collision Course, 4 F's to Transform Life's Challenges into Powerful Breakthroughs. Now, what was the inspiration behind the book? What was what happened, to lead to writing this book, and what was that aha moment for you?
Yeah, no, this has definitely been, like, I'm not even going to say a passion project, because I think it's, sometimes, and I, not to get like overly spiritual really quick, but like, and I'm like removing like whoever you pray to in this scenario, but okay. Ultimately it's like there is some type of higher being that is working in you, through you, and around you, whether you know it or not. Right. And so in this case, the I think one of the leading causes of what happened in this to get to the book is I didn't really spend time with myself, right? Like it's, and I'm leading it into this way on purpose, is I didn't really spend time with myself to understand maybe some of the subconscious or below surface issues that were either festering or unresolved. And so it was leading me to behaviors or decisions that were done poorly, right? And especially as a young person, right? So you are young, you're in your career, you're having a good time, etc. And then the thing that comes with a lot of salespeople and business folks is there's a lot of social events, right? So that means there's usually lots of drinking. So over time, that becomes an unintentional habit of socially drinking. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, this is where it leads into the book is, I went out with a group of my really close friends. Like we're all like brothers. We went to school together. We've been friends for the last 10 years, etc. And we went out, drove the car. I just got this car in particular as a graduation gift from undergrad. So I had it for about 2 years. Mm-hmm. And we went drinking and drinking. Like we had a good time. We were celebrating successes, etc. And that celebration turned into a car crash. Right.
Oh, wow.
And so I was drinking and driving. I totaled my car, with, a group of friends in the car next to me. They saw the accident happen like from a distance. And so there was this whole like series of events around the accident where I totaled the car. And in the book, the first like 2 pages of the book, and I posted on social media and stuff, but there's a picture of the car, which I am really thankful around, because if the car, I think, wasn't a nicer vehicle, with the safety built into it,
right,
and the piece of lumbar that you can see indented by the median in the tree, like it would have been an issue. Like I either might not have been walking or might not be talking to you. And so like the gravity of the accident, I've always been a writer, and maybe it just comes from whatever. I just always been a writer. Mm-hmm. And so I started journaling about the accident right after it happened. And, once I spent 24 hours in jail, like this whole thing happened. And so I started journaling about the book, right? And not the book, about the accident. And that first chapter in the book is called Wake Up Call. And it's very detailed. Like you can tell I wrote it. Like the memory recall is clear. Like it was a recent time when I wrote it, from the time when the accident happened. And so that I just kept writing, and I wanted to use the accident as sort of my fuel or my catalyst, because I was at one point embarrassed or feeling like defined by the decision I made, and there were so many implications behind it, personally, professionally, etc. So I just started writing, and then I always said that's what made the decision about Fargo like even easier, right? As it gave me an opportunity to say, look, Phil, you got to leave Atlanta. Like you need to go get in a remote location where nobody really knows you. Like there's no influence of your parents or your friends or any of that. And you just go see who you are, what you're made of, and what you want to do with the rest of your life. And so that point became, the accident happened in December 2014. And, I moved to Fargo in July of 2015. And 2015, started, a couple of things that I talk about in the book, as well, that happened early July 2015. But ultimately, like that became the start of the book. And 4 years later, right, which is intentionally done. I mean, the 4 clearly is a unifying thread of the book, whether it's the 4 F's or just the 4 years it's taken to publish. And so that's sort of what led me into publishing it, this year, Collision Course.
So now, what are the 4 F's? You mentioned that. Well, first of all, let me step back. Thank God that you had that wake up call. Thank God that you were not seriously hurt or injured, or that we are still able to talk to you. So you're absolutely right. There's a higher being. There was definitely a higher being watching over you, and kind of plucking you from that situation and saying, "Nope, Phil, I'm not done with you. There's more for you."
Exactly.
So blessings to you for that, and that you are still here with us, and sure. and that you're able to kind of walk away from it and talk about it. Now, second of all, let's talk about the 4 F's. What are the 4 F's?
The 4 F's, really straightforward. When I was doing the book is this model around how can I compartmentalize what I was going through, and then, sort of turn it into an execution framework, right? Where then I could go reflect and sort of keep going in cycles. Okay. So the 4 F's are find, the first, find, focus, feed, and facts. So really, really, easy kind of model and approach. But those 4 F's have been, I think, the foundation for the success and the learnings and the experiences I've had over the last 4 years for sure. But yeah, find, focus, feed, and facts.
Wow, I'm excited to read the book. So I'll definitely understand. Can you give me maybe just a little quick synopsis of each of the F's then? The find, the focus, the feed, and what was the last one?
The facts.
Okay.
My favorite one. But okay. No, I'll tell you. Yeah. So the find, right, is essentially like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Like, what mountain are you trying to climb? What objective in life is giving you pushback, right? Or you're just at that place of contention where you need to start figuring out what you're going to do next, or how you're going to get to your breakthrough, right? To the next sort of chapter.
Right.
So like for me, my find was, Phil, you need to spend some time with yourself. You're not in the right headspace. You're not being the person that you were designed to be. And we need to figure out how to get you recalibrated. So that's go ahead.
I think there's 5 F's. Fargo is one of them. Just kidding.
Fargo is, it's funny. Fargo really is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was, I just had to throw, I'm not a comedian. I tried to be. So.
That was a good one. Fargo's in my story forever. So
forever. Yeah. And then focus.
Yeah. So focus is really around like, what are those inputs? Like what are the resources, the people, whatever those things might be that can help you execute, right? So for me, it was, I needed time and space. So my focus was around time and space for a reason, which was I needed to be in Fargo, the space, with myself, and I needed time to really understand, yes, you need to recalibrate and figure out what that means. And so the focus is just, how can you really find the resources to help you get there? So I always use the analogy for the find. To be the find are like the glasses, right? It's the prescription for you to figure out or see, that objective or that mountain and the direction you need to go a lot clearer. And then the feed, right, is now that you are able to see clearly, this is really the execution period. It's you need to continuously feed into the positivity around that objective or the positive side of the mountain that you're trying to climb, and be resilient in that pursuit, right? And so it's more on what are the things that you're going to continuously do through repetition to achieve success. So for me, it was like, can you close a deal? Okay, great. Can you close many deals? Or can you make impacts with customers? Can you really get to know people and disarm them the way you want to by humanizing technology conversations? Can you start to, reset the perspective that people have on you based on, your actions, and have those be, define who you are, and not necessarily telling people what you're doing? And so then that sort of leads into the facts, right? Is, what did you do? Like, these are the outcomes, the results, the achievements, those accomplishments, the mountaintop, right? Reaching the summit, and then being able to sit there at the mountain and say, I see another mountain. So then you start over, right? You're like, okay, I found another mountain, the find, the focus. You start to, sort of figure out what glasses do you need again to give you the right perspective and clarity, pour into that objective. And then you see what the facts are, the outcomes are again, right? And so that's sort of how I've compartmentalized every scenario or objective that I've been in, are, find, focus, feed, facts.
So it sounds like a roadmap or a formula for kind of life in how you always, as we talk about books, chapters, every time you have a new chapter in your life, it starts your 4 F's all over again. Your find, your feed, your focus, your feed, and your fact. And it's so true. I mean, never before has it really rang true for me. mostly earlier in my life, but even now as you're speaking, I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of me. I'm going through this next chapter. I am at the start of my 4 Fs right now. I'm in the fine situation, and I like that because it is a roadmap and it kind of helps you stay on course. Really not, and it doesn't, there's not much room for deviation. Yeah, there's maybe, time to stop and smell the roses, look at the scenery and whatnot, but there really isn't, if you look at the roadmap, there really isn't a direction to go off course because it should keep you on course each and every time. So for every chapter, I love that.
It's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool because in the book, and I'll credit my mother for this part, is when we were talking about, I was talking to her about the book in the beginning, and once I sort of got past like the manuscript part, and I was like, Mom, I want to put this thing together. She had this idea of like putting a sort of not an exercise, but basically an area in the book, which is in the back of the book, for people, because it's a quick read, right? It's not like I designed the book and formatted the book based on like how I like to read. Like I love reading, but I don't like to read like long books, right? Because it's like ultimately it's like if you can't make the point, like you can't make it, right? And if you can't make it in like succinctly, like it's like okay. Like you're just adding pages to make the point, and I'm already like ready to close it. Yeah. And so I intended it to be more of like a pocket book. Like it's not the average size book. Like it's intended to be like you can put it in your purse, like you can put it in your clutch, or you can put it in your backpack, whatever. Now, but at the end of the book, there's 2 pages where you can actually write down after reading the book and thinking through, like for example, like Annie, maybe your 4 Fs, right, or your obstacle that you're in today. Like you can actually write it out, right, in the book, so you kind of keep those thoughts together, and it becomes more of a reference resource to help you along the journey, than just like, hey, here's another business book or life self-help book that you can leverage. I wanted the book and the 4 Fs to help, be a conversation point, but like back to your point, right, like an opportunity for people to say like, okay, that's what Phil did, but my scenario is this, and I can apply the 4 Fs this way, and here's how I did it. And I've always been a firm believer in write it down. I say it like that on purpose, is because like you really have to write it down. And I know that might air other places where they're like, oh, he cursed. But like seriously, like you have to write stuff down. Yeah. Or it's just a thought in your mind and you forget. And it's more like intentional excellence, right? Like if you write it down, you intend to accomplish that. That's right. So like when I have objectives, I write them down, no matter like how small it is, or maybe it's one of those like epic ones that you're like, this might not happen like anytime soon. Yeah. Like the book for me was an epic one where I was like, are you just writing a book, or are you like, just like a project? I was like, no, this is a testimony. Like I need to share it and take, the scary part away and just go after it. And so
well, I think it's kind of a 1, a wake-up call, and 2, testimony, and now 3, it's kind of a call to action to let everybody know, well, okay, what's your 4 Fs and what are you struggling with, and how can, like you said, how can these 4 Fs apply to your scenario? And in my case, how can these 4 Fs apply to me? Oh, in so many ways, it's impactful, and it's kind of where I kind of need to be right now is wondering like, okay, what's the next step? Okay, let's go back to this diagram. Let's see. Oh, I've discovered my find. Now what can I focus on? And, or, what are the glasses that I can put on? What do I need to see? And, what's the perspective, and what's the outcome? What's the result? What am I trying to achieve? So yeah, absolutely. It's very applicable, I think, in every scenario. So good for you. Kudos to you. I mean, if I were there, here's a virtual pat on the back. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll take it.
Awesome. I love that. So now tell us what's next for you in your next 5 years, 10 years from now.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know.
I used to want to, like, I had this idea of things, right? Where I was like, oh, in 5 years and then 10 years, I'm going to be a CEO of a major company or whatever I'm going to do.
Right.
Like nowhere in my like sort of life plan, as I was like raised to create this plan, I was like, I don't have a plan anymore. I'm really just following the assignments as they're given to me and trying to execute them to the best of my ability. So if in the next 5 years, maybe I write another book.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that either. I think wherever you are, wherever you're planted now, that's where you need to kind of, nurture and grow the roots and, let yourself kind of mature and grow and see where it leads you. And if the wind takes you someplace else, if the wind takes your seeds someplace else, then, then so be it. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You're right. Years ago, it was ideal for all of us to be in, an industry for years on years and years. My dad, I think before he passed, he was at his company for almost 40 years. That's great for him. And longevity, good for him. But then I think today it's not the same, or it could be. I don't know. It's different for everybody. And I think that's case by case. And you just really need to see where you feel more impactful, where you feel you can make a difference, and where you feel like your career is leading you. So I say, keep doing what you're doing, because I believe wholeheartedly another opportunity is going to open up, and watch. You're going to go where the wind takes you, and you're going to conquer that. I just feel it.
I appreciate it. No, I can say though, I mean, one of the things I have thought about that I do want to, at some point grow into, which is, I've been able and been super blessed to have a strong community around me, like every step of the way, whether I knew it or not. But a lot of people, that I have either mentored or have come into contact with, like, they don't always get that. And so I think for me at some point in time, maybe I become a teacher or some type of person in the community that helps, young people, especially like young people that look like me, that have to go through the same things I do every day, to be able to see that there's a way or a different path or a path that they can take to be successful, and to show that earlier in life. And then when they get to, let's say, like a high school where, their sort of minds are made up. So I think my calling might be something around that in the next 5 to 10 years. Who knows?
I think so.
But even now, right, I have the blessing and the platform across, personally and professionally, to be able to start that work. And so, sometimes that's what it's about, is just do it now. And again, like, we'll see what happens in 5 years, 10 years, but
right.
Try to make impact today.
I think you have a heart for mentorship too. So, I think that's, for sure. I think that's kind of, not only in the writing of the book, because that is a form of mentorship, but it is a form of shepherd and pastoral, if whatever verb you use or adjective you use there is just it. I think that's part of your makeup. So, keep going in that direction, because I think you'll be making really good, you'll be impactful in somebody's life. You're already impactful in many lives, including mine. So
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Now, we know that February is Black History Month, and I wanted to kind of touch a little bit on that. And cool. How important is Black History Month to you, and what does Black History Month mean to you?
No, yeah, Black History Month is very important to me, and I'll tell you, I grew up in as a child around like all things like Black, African American, African culture, which super impactful into my development as a human being, and I will say, like, the month is very important, but I also look at Black History Month as a 12-month exercise, right? Which is every day to me, me, especially being Black and of African descent, is every day, right? Yeah. So I look at February as like, oh, you guys just get, like, everyone gets to just see the excellence that exudes from the community, and some of the work, and the sacrifice that people made, which are often the common tales that are told. But I think in certain places you also get to learn about the untold stories, which is really what, to me, the month is about as well, is people that you don't get to see celebrated as much from what you learn in school or other places. But the month is really, I think, a celebration point, but also a reflection point that we have so much more to do. As not just, for Black History Month, but like as people and humanity, we have a lot of work to do. And the visuals that you oftentimes will see are the ones where there are breakthroughs or doors being knocked down or laws being passed to have equality, and the same access, that the majority, folks have. And so it's a reflection point to me also in that, I'm grateful for and I benefit so much from the tireless work of other people and stand on those shoulders. And so the month is an opportunity for me to like turn it up, right?
Yeah.
Because like people did so much for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's people I know or don't, right? That's what it's about.
Yeah, I like what you said too, because it's usually hearing about the stories that we've never heard of before. And in fact, I just posted yesterday, as a matter of fact, at the start of the day, I posted I forwarded something and I posted it on my Facebook of Gladys West, Dr. Gladys West. I'm so sorry, Dr. Gladys West, who invented the GPS technology, the technology that we all use.
All of everyone.
All of us, everyone from businesses to personal, everything. So, definitely. And when I saw this, I thought, oh, this is so awesome. And I had to share it. And, so she's definitely, one of my newest heroes. Who would you say gives meaning to you? Who are some of your heroes?
The first one, is more close to home. So my dad actually was the human rights director for the city of St. Paul,
wow.
where I grew up for, 10, 15 years or whatever it was, maybe 15 years. And so initially, like the first like hero of mine would be my dad, because he put me in the position to understand who I was as a Black man in America and in the world, right? And to never forget that. And so like for me, he's that person.
Yeah.
And I use him intentionally because like there's a lot of work that you kind of see as a young person that you don't really understand. And a lot of times, like for example, and I'll use this, and it'll come back to my dad, but a lot of people see like Martin Luther King and they see Martin Luther King like the I Have a Dream speech, right?
Right.
But not many people really listen to the speech.
Yeah.
Right. Or saw the backlash legitimately that happened, or the other pieces that led up to that type of moment, or beyond that, and the impact it had to his family, like things like that. And then you also get to see like the cool part, right? Which is like the hero part for me as well, is like, I'm proud of like when I go around town, I'm like, yeah, this is my dad. They're like, oh, like that's your dad. I'm like, yeah. Like that's my dad.
Awesome.
And he has like a day named after him in the city. Like, it's like when somebody does a lot of the work that most people want to do, but don't take action against,
right?
Are what make them heroes, right? And I think and I wouldn't even say hero. I think it's just my dad. And he does what he loves to do.
Right.
And he doesn't sacrifice who he is in the process. And so even for me, someone in corporate, like I keep that in mind is, I'm never going to get into a situation where I forget who I am. And I think that applies to anybody, like in any month, like for whatever culture or ethnicity you come from, is like, know who you are and don't forget it, because it'll help sort of guide your steps in the decisions you make, how you interact with people, how you treat people,
wow.
Be a human being versus looking at what people look like on the exterior. So there's so much to me, but I would say my dad.
Now, what's your dad's name?
Terrill.
That's awesome. So you have had two great powerhouse influences in your life. Your mother, first of all.
Both of them.
and then your father. I mean, these are the foundations on which you've built. And you've definitely, I think you have a really good head on your shoulders. You already know what you want to do. And you're, well, one, I know you're making them very, very proud. And two, you're just you're making progress. So you're not keeping, quiet and still and status quo. You're making progress. And I think that's what everybody should take away from this, not just for Black History Month, for anybody of color, myself including, and for all ethnicities, make a difference, get in there, make a difference, make some small wave, and, that one small wave turns into another wave and another wave, it's just throwing a pebble in the lake, it's the ripple effect. Your ripple effect is going to be impactful someplace, somewhere.
I hope so. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, we just have so much we can do as people, right? Like if we just, and it's hard to remove, what people look like on the exterior, but seriously, like if you, remove the bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's always going to be this historical bind, that we can't take back, right? Like we will always live in the decisions of our predecessors, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean the future has to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And the present doesn't have to reflect the past. And so we do have, the responsibility of, the next generation of people, to change the narrative. And so that means we have to, one, do some self-reflection,
mm-hmm.
and also do some reading and some learning about other cultures and people. So you have, you're educated and informed on,
mm-hmm.
What they deal with, what they're going through, and then that way you can start to have conversation and dialogue that's not about differences, but about, a collective direction that we can go together. So.
Wow, that's so beautifully said. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. And then now for parting words of wisdom, what can you share with me? We've already shared a lot.
He's like, this guy has taken this way too deep on me.
I love it. This is I love uncovering all these little nuggets. If any of my listeners or any of the new listeners have heard anything, it's just know that I love to have conversations, and I love to hear what everybody says, because I think it has it has deep meaning, and two, they have something to say. Phil has something to say, and I believe that his message is so loud and clear. It's, getting out there, stepping out of your comfort zone, and this is probably what you wanted to say, I don't know, but it's stepping out of your comfort zone. Go find your Fargo, go find some place where you can learn, immerse yourself and make yourself better, make the world a better place. So if I haven't already said it, could you just tell us what your little nuggets or words of wisdom, and for those who want to be like you, whether it be a business professional, an entrepreneur, or even a writer, what can you share with them?
Yeah, so I have like maybe two things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's more, but no, no, seriously.
We could be here all day. No,
seriously. I think you're right though. The first one is, find whatever place is your Fargo. It's funny because when I was writing the book, that was actually going to be a name of a chapter. It was Finding Fargo.
Oh my gosh.
So there's all kinds of synergy. See, like Annie and I, we're connected.
Yes.
But no, so it would be, first, seriously, like find a Fargo, or, find a place where you can really spend time with yourself. So self-discovery, like just spend time with yourself. It's a truth. Like my grandmother, I was just with her, this past Saturday, and she said something I don't think she realized how powerful it is, but she was like, if you can't enjoy spending time with yourself, no one will enjoy spending time with you.
Oh, right.
And so,
grandmother.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, that's so true. And I was like, that would be my advice, is like, get to know yourself, like spend some time with yourself. Like it's okay to love yourself, like love on you, like love on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And not like in a crazy way, but like love on yourself, like be proud of who you are, invest in yourself, spend that time. And then the second thing is more, I'll give you the quote that I have in the book. So all of my close friends that were actually either with me the night of the accident or just, that core group, they all have quotes in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to share my quote, because it's kind of what I would say is my other like words of wisdom, I guess, or parting words.
Mantra. Yeah.
Yeah. It's this, right? Life is not what lies in front of you. It's what is beyond you that really matters. Right. So, that's what I will leave the listeners with is, yes, today is important, but preparing for tomorrow is equally, if not even more important, right? So you can focus on today, but also preparing for tomorrow.
I love that. Oh my goodness. I'm so thankful that you were on the show to talk about
I'm glad to be here.
And I'm so thankful that we have the opportunity to I felt like we just kind of caught up of years since 2011. My goodness, what's that? 8 years?
8 years. I know, but that's a testament of relationships are everything. And whether it's from afar or, every day, once you get connected with somebody, maintain the connection.
That's it. I love it. Where can we find your book, Phil?
Yeah, you can find the book, read collisioncourse.com. And then you probably could find it on Amazon somewhere. So Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, if you're somewhere else, wherever you go online to buy your books. And it in the near future probably be in the library near you. And it's available paperback and ebook or whatever mobile device you might use.
Awesome. And then how can followers or how can listeners follow you on social media?
Yeah, so my favorite place to actually interact with people, personally, socially, is on Instagram. So my Instagram is actually CatchPT, and my LinkedIn, you can search me on LinkedIn, Phil Terrill. I love connecting with professionals on LinkedIn. That's my go-to for that, and I use both as sort of a connected brand or a connected platform. So
awesome.
Something I share on Instagram, I tend to share on LinkedIn as well. They're very connected brands. So,
and then give us the Instagram again, and I'll include that in the show notes as well.
Yep, Catch, CATCH, PT.
PT. Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole story behind that too.
Oh my goodness. That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother episode.
Awesome. So everybody, I will have Phil's information, where to find his book, his website, and his social media links down below in the show notes. So be sure to check it out and be sure to go get his book. I think it's going to be life-changing as it was life-changing for him. So,
thank you.
He's definitely paying it forward for all of us. So thank you. Phil, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so happy to have reconnected with you. And I'm so thankful that you were here to just share your story. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story, but also thank you for being bold in sharing your story. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Annie. And for everybody listening, make sure you follow Annie's podcast, everything she does, Annie Talks, whatever else she's doing, follow it. Stay connected and, learn as much as you can from her.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Annie Talks and learning about Phil Terrill. I encourage you to go buy his book, Collision Course, and learn the principles of his 4 Fs: find, focus, feed, and facts. I also encourage you, like Phil says, to go find your Fargo. Don't forget to check Phil's website out, and don't forget to follow Phil on social media. I will have all that information down below in the show notes, so be sure to check them out. Now, before you go, if you haven't already subscribed to Annie Talks podcast, I invite you to hit subscribe and be notified anytime we upload a new episode. If you could also rate and review my podcast, it would surely help me out and help others to find my podcast too. You can also follow Annie Talks on social media. I will have all the social media links down below in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and keep listening to Annie Talks.
Hey everyone, this is Phil Terrill, author of Collision Course, 4 Fs to Transform Life's Challenges into Powerful Breakthroughs, and you're listening to Annie Talks.